Hi, my name is Greg Rand. I'm with Own America, and I want to tell you about a new listing my company came on the market with at 515 Comanche Drive, Colorado Springs. And I'm going to do a brief case study for you of this property as an investment for long-term wealth creation using some of the tools that we have available to us here. So this property at 515 Comanche Drive is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,200 square feet single-family home. And it's owned by the bank right now. It has gone through foreclosure. And what we'll do is I'm going to show you some basic analytics about how this property will perform given certain assumptions. First of all, this property has appreciated at a rate of 35.4% over the last 10 years. It's lost value in the last 1 year. It's lost 4%. It's lost 7% in the last 3. But in the last 10 years, it's gained 35.4. It's outperformed the city of Colorado Springs by a little bit, the county of El Paso, and the state of Colorado. So this is a property that is outperforming its neighbors and the rest of the state. I'd also like to show you that this property has an estimated rental income of $1,200 a month, and the taxes on this property are $1,500 a year. So we're going to jump over to a tool that we have here called the Case Study Calculator, and I'm going to punch in some assumptions and show you the way this property performs given the state of today's market and the different things that drive wealth creation in real estate. If you paid asking price for this property, and of course we'd make an offer probably below asking price, but $167,000, if you put a down payment down of, let's say, $50,000, which is a 30% down payment. These days you're required to get at least 25% down, and so I'll assume 30% to keep our down payment healthy. Let's assume we have about $10,000 in closing costs. These are estimates for the purpose of my case study. And with today's mortgage rates, you can get easily a 5.5% mortgage, probably even better than that, even for an investor mortgage. Now what you're seeing is that I've got my 3 charts here on the right that are each beginning to come to life for you now. The first one is investor equity. One of the things that I'm going to ask you if you become a client of mine is, what are you investing for? What is the long-term goal of this investment? Because you should have a long-term goal. Some of my clients use real estate investments to fund college for their children or grandchildren. Some of my clients use investments for real estate for long-term wealth creation, retirement planning, and so forth. So we're going to show you 30-year charts on investor equity, cash flow, and internal rate of return for this property. So this shows that if the property didn't appreciate a lick, over the next 10 or 12 years, it would show about $75,000 worth of equity from the $50,000 down payment and $10,000 closing cost. But I have to put an assumption in here of what my appreciation rate will be. We've seen that Colorado Springs, even after the big bust that we've gone through in this housing crisis, still showed a 35% appreciation over the last 10 years. Nationally, the American housing market does about 3.5% per year. So I'm going to assume, because we're buying in a good place here, and we're buying in a good time, that conservatively we're going to estimate 2.5% appreciation. Now I have to say at this point that nothing that I'm showing you here is guaranteed. It's a risk to invest in any kind of investment, including real estate, and there's no way that I could ever forecast the future. The purpose of this case study is to show you, based on certain assumptions that we agree to look at, what would this property do in terms of performance. So I click on that, and it shows that my equity now is building over time. As I pay the mortgage down and as the property appreciates, 10 or 12 years out, I've now got $141,000 worth of equity. The green line shows the equity. If I go all the way out 30 years, this property becomes worth $328,000 in equity for my $50,000 down payment. Let's look more closely now on the cash flow. You want to be able to have this property pay for itself, at least if not right away, in the not too distant future, so you're making current income as well as long-term appreciation. So we know this property is going to rent for about $1,200 a month in the first year, and that translates into $14,400 in annual rental income. I'm going to assume a vacancy rate of 5%. That means that basically your property is occupied 23 months out of every 24 months. So you sign a 2-year lease. At the end of a lease, if you have a good real estate broker working for you, they notify you when your lease is coming due. They get it on the market and get somebody else in there, but you assume that 1 month out of every 2 years you have a vacancy. It could be higher, but in Colorado Springs, the rental demand is pretty strong, and so I feel comfortable with a 5% vacancy. The property taxes on this house are very low at $1,500 a year, ridiculously low. We're going to assume $800 in insurance. I'm not going to worry about legal fees. We're going to imagine that you've got maintenance costs of, let's say, about $200 a month, so $2,400 a year. And again, we'll sharpen our pencil when we get down to brass tacks, depending on how you're going to want to manage this property. You may want to maintain it yourself. You may want to hire contractors, but I'm going to be conservative and assume you've got $200 a month in expenses there. Utilities, you're going to wind up putting the utilities on the tenants, so you're not going to pay utilities. And then we're going to assume we have another $2,000 a year in miscellaneous other expenses. So it shows now that my total operating expenses are $6,700 a year, which means my net operating income, the amount of money this property throws off in income before I pay the mortgage payment, is $6,980. With a capitalization rate of 4.17%, meaning the amount of money this thing generates compared to how much I put into it, I'm getting a 4.17% return before I pay the mortgage payment. Or I'm sorry, the value of the property minus compared to the value of this. Then it shows me the capitalization rate of 4.17%. Cap rate means how much is this property based upon its current value, what I'm paying for it, what is it going to generate in terms of net operating income before I make the mortgage payment. It's a way of gauging a property's performance against another property. 4.17%. Now, what's key here is that it shows the property losing just shy of $1,000 a year at this current rate, but the way to manage a rental property correctly is you build in annual increases in your rent every year. And we're going to assume that you can't always get 3% increases. We're going to assume you get a 2% increase in rents. And we're going to hold our expenses close to a 1% increase in expenses. So this shows the property loses a little bit of money in the first couple of years, breaks even, according to these assumptions, in 2016, and then begins to be profitable. Now, if I scroll down here, it shows me that my cash flow in the beginning is negative, but of course the chart then shows me that it becomes positive. And then there's the internal rate of return. This is the number that bundles together how much money you've put in down payment and closing costs, how much you're putting in if you're absorbing negative cash flow, how much you're getting back in appreciation, paying down your mortgage, and positive cash flow, and shows you each year what the annual rate of return is on that property. And it shows that according to our assumptions here, this will perform at 7.2%, 7.1% depending on the year. Not a bad investment for a safe piece of real estate in Colorado. And I'll show you one more thing. One of the great things about the case study calculator is I can change my assumptions and see how different assumptions affect the outcome of the property. So let's say instead of 2.5% appreciation, I only get 1.5%. Now my equity has come down, so over the next 10 years I only have $100,000 to show for my troubles. And my internal rate of return now has come down to a little bit north of 5%. And then I'll see that what happens if, on a better case scenario, I get 3.5% appreciation. Now, my equity 10 years later is $150,000, and my rate of return is getting close to 9%. It's better than 8%. So we use this tool to be able to test our assumptions, test our theories, and show the way real estate performs. And I hope you appreciated my case study. Again, my name is Greg Rand. My website is ownamerica.com. My email address is greg@ownamerica.com. And if you'd like to look at properties, look at this property or any others, and have me analyze it like this for you, please give me a call at 914-755-1455.